Overnight, global markets and policymakers are again being pulled between conflict-driven price shocks and a fast-moving technological transition. On the global economy, U.S. inflation has jumped to 3.8%, with energy costs rising sharply as the Iran war pushes petrol prices higher. The Financial Times and BBC both point to the conflict as a key driver, and the inflation print will intensify scrutiny of the U.S. Federal Reserve's next moves. In Washington, Kevin Warsh has been confirmed to the Fed board in a close Senate vote and is now being discussed as the likely next chair. The FT is also warning about growing political pressure on central bank independence, a theme investors will watch closely as inflation reaccelerates. On global conflict, the Iran ceasefire remains fragile. The BBC reports President Trump says it is on massive life support and criticized an Iranian counteroffer. In the region, Al Jazeera reports Israel has sent Iron Dome batteries and personnel to the UAE, according to a U.S. envoy, underlining the risk of wider regional entanglement. Separately, Lebanon's health ministry says 10 people were killed in Israeli strikes, including 2 paramedics on a rescue mission. On health security, the World Health Organization says there is no sign yet of a larger hantavirus outbreak, but cautions the situation could change. The Guardian reports up to 150 passengers from the MV Hondias are traveling home after an outbreak linked to 3 deaths, with the WHO recommending, but not mandating, a 42-day quarantine period. SBS also reports Argentine locals in a tourism town have rejected claims it is the origin point, calling it a smear campaign. On artificial intelligence and the technological revolution, the Financial Times highlights growing public anxiety in the U.S. about AI, with concerns that the technology is being framed as unstoppable and politically endorsed. The immediate policy implication is that governments are being pushed to show they can shape AI's labor market and security impacts, not just adopt the tools. Turning to Australia, the dominant development is the federal budget and its housing and tax reform agenda. The conversation describes a bundle of reforms delivered in a period of extreme uncertainty, including significant changes to capital gains tax, negative gearing and trusts, while noting the overall stance is cautious. ABC analysis says removing negative gearing on existing properties would reduce what many investors can pay and improve conditions for owner-occupiers, but warns the changes alone are not a cure-all. Another ABC piece frames Labour's political bet. If younger Australians believe home ownership is back within reach, the government expects a dividend on the Australian economy and public finances. SBS has broken down where each $100 of federal spending goes, as households look for clarity on cost of living priorities. The conversation also flags the government's message that growth will slow but not stall, with the Treasurer insisting Australia can avoid recession even under a worst-case scenario. On Australian government policy and politics, migration is a live pressure point. The Sydney Morning Herald reports the budget expects 35,000 more migrants to stay this financial year than previously forecast, as the Coalition and One Nation push for significant reductions. On national security and defense, SBS reports tributes for a 50-year-old paratrooper killed in a NSW training incident, with condolences from the Prime Minister. And on foreign policy, SBS reports Australia has imposed new sanctions on Iranian officials, taking the total to more than 230 sanctioned Iranian individuals and entities to date. Locally, property remains the sharp edge of the economy. The SMH reports Karratha has recorded the fastest annual house price growth in the country over the past 12 months. In Perth, the SMH reports a council is set to spend $50,000 reviewing its planning department after resident concerns about planning interpretations and responses. These local planning and supply settings will matter more as federal housing incentives and tax changes flow through.